Mind me, Ruby.
All right, we're live.
Well, Hotel family, Hotel peace and blessings. I greet you in the name of God and the ancestors, and whose footsteps I most humbly walk. His brother Ed Mojo, we're here for Sisters for Harmony. We have Ruby Burke with us. Hey, Ruby, say hi.
Hello.
And we got the president, Dr. Walls over there. And we have a very special guest with us today. So I'm excited already because we got some stuff in the background happening already. I am excited, family. Okay. But what Dr. Walls always tell everyone to do, get your pen and paper, because we're gonna be giving out some very important information. And as the world gets smaller and smaller, it's important that we educate ourselves as we move across state lines, country lines, across the globe. And we have a very, very special guest here with us today. Um, Come to find out, we have her husband and I got something in common. I'm excited about that. So I'm going to ask Dr. Walls, would you like to introduce our very special guest?
I'm going to let you go ahead and do it because you were the one who discovered her.
Oh, I didn't discover. I just found. We found each other. It was illusion vibration, family. Well, family, what Dr. Walls is talking about is because her husband and I are illusion. He's from the south, I'm from the north. We just found that out, which is really cool, and so we have much more to speak about. But Dr. Ramontal, I hope
Yes.
that's
Hmm.
Dr. Ramontal. She does some very special work, and it's always for me personally, I'm always good when I see women of color just knocking doors down, putting everything together, and just delivering it to us on an international level. Because you all know about what Sisters for Harmony is about. And so I'm excited to have her come on, talk a little bit about what she does and why did she start doing this? Because it caught my when I saw medical tourism, I was like, medical tourism. And I had my ideas about it, but I want her to talk about it. So I want to introduce to the global family. If you're listening, I'm gonna get your pen and paper. Get your pen and paper. See, I got my pen. I got my paper right here. I got my pen. Can't see anything, but I got my pen. And so Dr. Natasha Ramontal is with us, RN. She has an RN in this. You know what that means, right? Really, really nice lady. That's what it stands for. Really. Dr. Ramontal, welcome to Sisters for Harmony. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing well. Well, thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Well, you know what? I am so happy this invite went
Hmm.
on. You said yes because now, you know, as a comedic elder, I always say 6 degrees of common ground.
Yes.
And in 6 degrees of in the African high tradition, we never separate anything. So it wasn't 6 degrees of separation, it was 6 degrees of common ground. So here
Mm.
you and I, and we have 2 degrees already, or 1 degree, we want to say, with your husband and I. So let's talk a little bit. Please tell the family a little bit about the RN behind your name, and then the medical tourism, and how did you put the two together?
Oh my goodness. So it's a really unconventional story. The RN is a registered nurse, which I am a nurse, but it's a second career for me. I actually sort of, nursing found me, although my mom is a nurse through and through and has been for better part of about
Donkey
almost
years?
60 years, almost 60 years, my mother. And she used to
Okay.
always tell me, you should be a nurse. And I was like, no, I can't stand the sight of blood. And of all places, I ended up working in the emergency room where you see blood all day long.
Yeah.
Um, but I actually ventured out on a path in international relations and worked
Hmm.
for, came out of college. I graduated from Howard University, my
Oh,
bachelor's.
what? The Bisons, right? You
You
said Bisons?
exactly.
Oh, cool.
But I actually got into international development with my first job out of college, and it was actually as an international programs manager for a small nonprofit in Miami where I live and where my family lives. I worked for them for about 5 years. But what that nonprofit was responsible for was working with the Caribbean and Latin America to develop partnerships, because Florida is in a unique situation where it's considered part of the Caribbean, right? You know, you have
Yeah.
so many of the diaspora coming to South Florida in particular, but we share the same climate, we share some of the same environmental issues
Mm.
and things of that nature. So this organization actually had put in place a partnership where professionals from the state of Florida would go to the Caribbean and Latin America to provide training and technical assistance to improve
Oh.
economic and
Wow.
social conditions in those countries. So a country can submit a request saying, I need training for X. It could be for farmers, it could be for medical
Oh,
professionals, any aspect in any industry. And my job was to find a group of professionals that could provide that, share their expertise in terms of their resumes, and have them select who they would like to come. And then I would facilitate the training. And sometimes I would have to travel there, but I was responsible for all of the English speaking Caribbean. And so,
okay.
well, not all, I would say about 12 countries. So
That's
the
all.
12
That's a
countries,
lot.
it is a lot. It is. And it was, so I had an opportunity to travel to all these countries. I developed and honed my negotiation skills because I had to learn with dealing with civil society, dealing with government, because the State Department actually ran that particular program. So it was a lot of collaboration. It was an
Mm,
amazing program. But of course, when you work for a nonprofit, you're constantly having to seek funds. And so that was really our challenge year after year, to prove the worthiness of that program. And
okay.
in the state of Florida, it was, well, how is it benefiting us?
Right,
We
right,
knew
right.
how it benefited the recipients, but how's it benefiting us? Well, you have a large population of
Yeah,
individuals from there that live in your state that
exactly.
contribute to the taxes and to the building of this particular geographic area. So there's a
Hmm.
lot that we have in common. So it just made sense to just
Yeah.
share and collaborate and build upon that. So I did that for a number of years. And then I moved on to more broader international work, where I did work for a number of nonprofits, specifically catering to women and
Okay.
women's issues, and trying to get women engaged in civil society and also in politics, and just grooming them. And it was the same type of exchange. I worked with those from actually Russia before all of this Ukraine stuff, from Africa, from Asia, and brought them over and connected them for sort of like an exchange program
Oh,
to
cool.
meet with their counterparts here, to strategize and learn skills so that they could take it back to their country and
Oh,
hopefully use it to advance whatever
right.
cause they were doing. But they also shared their experiences
Hmm.
with
That's
the
normal.
U.S.
Yeah.
counterparts, and to me that was a big thing to hear. The US counterparts, and I'm talking about legislators, everyone, because I was in DC at the time, they were learning from these women and
Oh, yeah.
actually picked up a number of skill sets that they hadn't thought about, and
Yeah.
approaches. So I thought that was the best work that
Hmm.
I ever engaged in, I thought at the time. And a personal tragedy led me to healthcare. I lost a brother. He was age 32 to a heart attack that he
Oh,
did
wow.
not know. He had no idea he had any issues going on, and
Hmm.
literally seemingly healthy. And that happened. And so I said to myself, okay, love what I do, live in DC, but I'm here alone. Let me move home back to South Florida and let me figure out what I want to do, because I just needed a change. And what happened was it led me to healthcare. I just said,
Mm.
I really want to get involved and see in healthcare to hopefully prevent what happened to my family happening to another family. So I went ahead and went back to school. And because I already had a degree, I joined a non-traditional nursing program, an accelerated nursing program, where it's for a year. And it went hard and heavy and fast and furious, and came out. And after that, I started working in the emergency department, where I worked for a number of years. And I also had an opportunity to work in the post-anesthesia care unit, those coming out of surgery. I did that in Minnesota for a short period of time. And I was affecting change, honestly, but I
Mhm.
felt that it was a little bit more on an individual level, and I needed it to be more on a broader scale, because I said,
You wanted to go global, huh?
I wanted to go global, but it
Yeah.
wasn't even global. It was just, I kept saying to myself, okay, I'm helping this one person, but am I really affecting that much change? I felt like there was more, because some
Mm.
of the circumstances leading to my brother's death, I felt like if the provider, the doctor, knew or had a little bit more time with him, things could have been a little different.
Okay.
You never know. You never
You
know.
never
So
know.
for
Yeah.
me, I felt like, let me see what way I can help improve upon the physicians spending a little bit more time with their patients, to really hear them, and honestly to do what they go to medical school to do. Many of them say, I didn't come to medical school to do paperwork, and they are inundated with paperwork, right? So a lot of what happened was I was at a hospital that happened to be going from paper charting to an electronic health record system, and
Okay.
they have a company, the vendor, come in and start training people ahead of
Okay.
time. And one of the things they asked is, who would like to be a super user? And those are anyone that volunteers to learn it and teach it to your peers. And I said,
Gotcha.
I'd like to do it. Let me give it a chance, because at least if I know it, I would, for myself, I'll be better off when I'm taking care of my patients. And I love to teach. You know, that's part of what I do. I've taught nurses as well. So I did that, and it was a really great experience, to the point where the vendor said, you know, you should consider doing this, you know, on the side. And I said, what, you know, how could I do that? And they said, oh, you don't have to take care of patients. You can literally travel as a consultant and go around and train nurses on how to use just the electronic medical record system. So you won't
Okay.
have patient loads. You'll just go around and just answer the questions. And because you have the clinical knowledge, you'll know what they're looking for, and you can help maybe build templates for them and those
Right.
sorts of things, so they can just click and go through a lot easier than they would have with on paper. And so that
Gotcha.
was my entree into sort of health IT.
Okay.
And even that was still on the side, even though I was still caring for patients. But then I moved around a lot in healthcare. I did case management. I saw it wasn't for me. I did in a hospital, outside of a hospital. I did home health. As I mentioned, I taught nurses, all these things. And honestly, it was because I sort of really didn't know where I wanted to be. And so I said, let me try a little of this, a little of that, to
That.
find my way. And
Uh-huh.
I found that health IT, and I found that to me was the most gratifying, because I could see the immediate result
So
of
from.
how we have changed the amount of time it takes a physician, and the frustration
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
level decrease by having this electronic platform for them to literally do click, 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 but they're spending more time listening and speaking with and
The
interacting with
patient.
and hearing
Patient.
their patients. And that, to me, that was it. I was like,
That was
this is
it, huh?
where I belong. That was it.
That's it.
And so I
Let,
got
so
health
let,
IT, and that's what sort of led me down that road. But medical tourism, that came along, honestly, because I was caring for a number of particularly Black and Latino women in
okay.
South Florida, who were going abroad and having surgeries, predominantly cosmetic or weight loss surgeries, and they
Okay.
were coming in with complications.
I just
And
saw I just saw some of the news about that with Mexico and stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that happens a lot. And what happened is uh, a lot of physicians, particularly in the US, because it's such a litigious country, many of them don't want to touch another physician's work, even if it's in the US. So much less someone coming from on a plane, and you don't know what was
Mm,
used, what
right.
technique, what tools. They could have infections. They were on a plane, so it could have made it worse, you know, depending on the altitude and all these things, all
Just
these
right.
factors that they don't have control over. And so I said to myself, what is going on? It's almost like a epidemic here, you know, seeing
Mhm.
all these women come in with all these, it wasn't side effects. I'd have to say that it was worse than that, you know, because side
Wow.
effects, you expect pain, you expect nausea a little bit,
Mhm.
those things, and they subside. These were botched surgeries, you know, and
Wow.
for me, it was an education issue, because a lot of them were leaving because it was just more affordable,
Right.
and affordability doesn't equate quality and
Quality.
safety.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's where I said, you know, I think I need to start talking about this a little more. And I used to go around to different, you know, groups. I have friends who invited me to their church or to their community health centers to just sort of talk about various aspects of healthcare. And they'd
Mhm.
always tell me, you should do this. This is something you should do. And so I finally decided to just step out and take a step to start talking about medical tourism, not so much to promote it, but if you are going to do it, I'm going to arm you with what you need to
Need.
know
Mhm.
so that you can make the best decisions, and hopefully you will have a better outcome physically, financially, and then also from a satisfaction standpoint. Because
Mm.
I try to do not only education, not only information about a procedure, but education also, because unfortunately, Blacks tend to have the highest rates of chronic illnesses, and women in particular as well, Black women. So what I do is I always give them information, because they tend to go to places where they have procedures done by people that don't look like us. So if they don't look like us, and you don't have a strong Black population, they may not know how to handle some of these issues. So I give them this information, so hopefully they'll go and have conversations during the consultation and say, how do you handle this? And are you familiar with that? And can you provide me with pictures of your Black patients? It's okay to ask that. It's not a problem. You want to see the skin. You want to see how it heals. You want to know what's going on, and if what they would do.
But you just said a whole bunch. I know Ruby's over there. Ruby's getting ready. Ruby's about to go over for surgery soon.
I just want you all to know that Kat is working behind the scenes. There's some technical difficulties going on, but she is listening. She can hear everything you're saying.
Okay. Thank you, Ruby. Thank you, Vice President. Well, you know what? I got a question for you. A little bit off from what you said when you said your mother. So how did your mother react to you going into the medical field like that? Because sounds like at the beginning you was not. I don't want to be a nurse, and now you are fully in this. What is your mom sitting there shaking her head and smiling at you now?
She's not. She's very. I already knew it. It's just I was waiting for you to figure it out. Typical Jamaican. I knew it already. I know.
Your mom's Jamaican. Oh, your mom's Jamaican.
My parents are Jamaican, and I'm.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah. So I know. Is this a way upon you for find out when you're ready?
Did she give you a big troop? Did she give you a big troops?
Oh yes, always. She's like, I knew it. She said, "Welcome to the sisterhood."
Oh Lord have mercy. Oh boy, that must have been a good conversation.
It was.
I could imagine being from the Caribbean. I could just imagine. Hey, Ruby, you have any questions for her on what she said? But I know I have a few. But do you have any? Vice President?
I'll let you start.
Oh, she's gonna let me start. Ooh, wow. Wow. I feel kind of. Let me put my tie on. Oh, okay. I got my paper. I'm listening to. So when you were talking about going overseas to get these surgeries, and I saw they had it's interesting you said that, because last week up here in the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, based in Philadelphia, they had a report in the news about these women who are going overseas, and a lot of things are happening to them, complications, and they had to come back here. And so, how do you educate? 'Cause I saw a couple of your stuff on social media. That's why I reached out to you. What is the procedure you go through with these women? How do you find them? Like, how do you find these women that's going to go overseas to do these different procedures?
So it's interesting. I don't find them. What I do is I just provide the education through my YouTube channel. I also have Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. And so I just post my videos for informational purposes. But I will say a group that encouraged me to create the YouTube channel is called the Exodus Summit. I don't know if you've heard of them. Exodus Summit is a group of two women, Rashida Dow and Stephanie Perry. Both of them work with Black women in particular to help them have go on sabbaticals or travel and just live a better life of ease instead of trying to live up to the expectations of Black excellence and all of those things. So I attended a number of their things, and one of the things they promote is women. Every person has a story to share and something to say, and you should start that on YouTube. And so I took a YouTube challenge. It was like for a week, and it was that time. That's when people kept telling me, "You should do this. You should do this." No one's out here doing medical tourism, so I don't go with anyone. I don't promote any particular physicians or even clinics or hospitals. And the reason I don't is honestly because I think the integrity of what I share is really important to me. So I research everything and then I share the information through social media. Now, what I do is offer also in my information, I also provide patient resources. So because I'm a nurse and I'm away from the bedside, but I'm in health IT and I work with global hospitals and clinics right now through my 9 to 5. What I do is I do share facilities that provide accreditation on quality and safety to all of those locations. So what I do is say, okay, I pick a topic, and the topic can be something like a particular surgery, or it can be a particular country that someone may have been looking at. And then I'll talk about this country is known for X, and here's what you need to know, and here's the questions you may need to ask. If I hit the topic from the disease aspect or from a surgical aspect, I will talk about that and share what specific things, Black women need to know, but also some of the generic things that they should be asking. Because a lot of times when you're a patient, you're vulnerable, you're in your most vulnerable state, and you don't remember.
Yeah.
You know, I even go into a doctor's office and I don't always remember what I have to say. So I encourage people to write down in their phone or wherever little topics so you remember everything at the time you're meeting, whether it's for memory issues or because you're just nervous. You know, sometimes things happen. So I don't really look at people and facilitate that, although there have been a few people who've asked me if I would do it for them through this channel. That's not something I could do right now, but there is something called medical tourism facilitators. And medical tourism facilitators, think about when you're going to travel, if you have a travel agent, this is what a medical tourism facilitator does. They are pretty much putting everything together for you for whatever procedure you want, whatever region of the world, and they make recommendations. Usually they have a specialty of a region or a country, and they can recommend from the clinician to the location. They can help coordinate all of your paperwork, your flights, arrangements, your in-country stay, making sure you have translators or interpreters or whatever you need. All of that is done by a medical tourism facilitator. If you choose to pay one, you could do it alone with the hospital, because many hospitals that specialize in medical tourism have an international office, and the international office has usually English-speaking individuals that work with a number of people to coordinate it themselves, but you can still pay someone to just do a package for you if you don't feel like doing it. So I educate people on that as well. I just tell them, hey, there's people like this out there. You can look for them. You can even become one if you want, because it's not anything that you need to go to get a degree for, but it's something that you certainly would take some courses for, or maybe even a certification.
So, hey, welcome back, Dr. Waltz.
Hello.
So, you know, you said a few things there. Let me ask you something. Dr. Waltz, you have anything you want to ask? Well, I know you
No,
were
you go
listening.
right. Yeah, I was listening, and the technology done kicked me. I've been all types of multiverses in the meantime.
Okay.
So you
What
go
about
right
you?
on ahead. I'm gonna slide
Anything you
in.
want? Anything, Ruby, you want to say? You want to ask, Ruby?
Go ahead and ask. Go ahead and ask your question.
No, but I'm having this conversation. I'm listening to her, and I'm just listening to her because she said a few things. First, let's do this. As I know, there's some people listening. They probably say, oh, "We didn't know that. We didn't know that." Now, let's talk about what is your YouTube channel? Because how do people? Because I know. Let's put that out there first, and I guess Dr. Walls or you or Ruby could type it into the chat room. How
Yeah,
can
I
people?
got it.
Sure. It's Medical Tourism RN 812. Medical Tourism RN 812. And that's on YouTube. And that's really where I put all of my content out, long videos, shorts. But then on Facebook and on Instagram and TikTok, I do shorts there. I have someone doing that for me. I don't really do all the technical stuff, but I do upload my own videos on YouTube. And what I do is a lot of times I have content that I know is really critical. When I see what types of things are going on out there, I say, you know, this is happening a lot. Let me comment on this or do a video on this. But I also ask viewers if there's anything that they'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. And so some of my videos have been as a result of that, particularly maternal health, because there's something called maternal tourism, where because Black women in the United States, the maternal health rate and the infant mortality rate here is deplorable. People are considering, Black women are considering leaving to have, to give birth or to go through their pregnancy. Yeah, it's a huge phenomenon. So a lot of people are leaving, and just for safety, they're concerned because they don't feel heard. And so I have 2 videos up that I did, and I never intended for it to be about that, but I got more and more requests for it. And I said, okay, I'm going to address this. And so I gave, specifically one was about IVF, in vitro fertilization, which countries are the best to go to for that. And I cover some of the laws surrounding it because it's not anything like it is in the US. And it's also significantly cheaper in a number of other countries. But because there are different laws, you know, about eggs and transfer of eggs, and it doesn't have to be from a family member, not from a family member. If you're a same-sex couple, you cannot do it in some countries. All of those things I researched and just put the top 14 countries that had that. And then my other maternal health, because I only have 2 maternal health videos. The other one was the safest countries for Black women to have babies, to give birth.
Wow.
And I took that from the maternal mortality rates in those countries being very low, and also from the infant mortality rates being very low in those countries. So it doesn't mean that Black women are flocking to those countries. What it means is I shared with you where it's safe for you to have your baby. And
I think that's what I saw.
Yeah, and the thing is, with that, I will tell you, you know, someone commented about it being a little misleading because I said Black women, and they said hardly any Black women live in some of these countries you mentioned. That's true, but I give the disclaimer at the front that I'm using the data from mortality rates. That's it. Not saying Black women flock here, because to be honest with you, there's several Black women in the US and the rates are deplorable. So if you want to argue that point, we can. You know, I said, so we're talking about, there's a thing called blue passport privilege, US passport. If you have a US passport, everyone just assumes you have money. So I'm not saying they're not racist, but they put the dollar before anything else. So you are getting really great quality care in these countries. And a lot of things are free or inclusive. You know, you're getting this before care, into intracare, and then right after, they're still sending someone to care for you, and you're not paying a dime. It's part of your package, or because there's universal health care in these countries. So it's not an extra. So a number of women are leaving. A number of them are leaving, and some of them come back, and some of them have decided to stay, not necessarily where they gave birth, but maybe just outside of the US, and are exploring options.
Yeah, you know, as you said that, I was thinking, because like since I work with the government for a long time, I know military personnel, when they go overseas and have children, they still consider U.S. citizens because they're working for the military. But if you're a U.S. citizen, you just go overseas and have a child in another country, what does that do to the citizenship of that child? Do you have more paperwork to do to bring the child into the country since they were not born on U.S. soil?
That's a good question. So on the US side, it's a lot easier if you're already a US citizen and you're bringing them back in. For the country, it's country specific. So some countries will say, yes, you're a citizen of that country because you're born here. Some of them are like, you're born here, but none of your parents or your grandparents were born here, so you're not considered a citizen. And that happens mostly in some of the Asiatic countries. You'll find in China and Japan, that's the case. They're not citizenship, but you may get some form of a residency. But they would still say that you're a U.S. citizen, or wherever your parents happen to be from. So it really depends on what country it is.
Yeah, as I was listening to you talking about that, I remember some people went through that. Some people I know in the military went through that, and I always wondered about that. I was like, got something. I'll be careful about what country you go to. So tell me a little bit. Now you said medical tourism facilitators. And that, I never heard that term before. I guess but like, that's pretty interesting. So what do they? You said a little bit. So they like put everything together for you on depending on the country you're going to.
Yes. So actually, what you tend to do with them is they're already well versed in. They either specialize in a particular surgery or procedure. And I say surgery or procedure, but honestly, you can go for treatment. So you know, when people think of medical tourism, automatically they tend to think of cosmetic surgery. But
I think BBLs.
Yes, exactly. BBL. So those things are, I won't lie, they're number one, right? On medical tourism. But the top 3 are like cosmetic, dental, and cardiac. And sometimes it switches between cardiac and procedures. Orthopedic people go
Really?
for knee replacement, hip replacements, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So but a lot of people also go for cancer treatment,
Yes,
fertility treatment,
yes.
and then other transplants, whether it's lung, heart, whatever it may be, they're going for transplant, hair transplants, all these things. So a medical tourism facilitator is someone who has trained and gotten some form of certification on all aspects of medical tourism. So what they do is they will seek out the best facilities, the best clinicians. They will
Mm-hmm.
help you find what you need, whether it's a particular procedure. They will talk to you about it. They do not have to be a healthcare professional, but it helps if they are, but a lot of them are not. They've
Hmm.
just been around and they know the ropes, if you will, because they've been doing this for a while. But a lot of them will negotiate prices for you. They tend to develop these relationships. So they may get you on a list a little bit higher if there was a waiting list. And then again, coordinate your travel, coordinate your stay in country, and they are there with you or for you throughout the process, pre, during, and post, and talk
Mm-hmm.
to you about how long you need to be there, how long you should make accommodations for before you fly back. And some of them are in country, so they'll be talking to you from there. And a lot of them sometimes they'll call them concierge, which is a little bit different, but concierges are people that are usually in country where you're going, and they are there for you doing those same types of things, but they will literally go and get your prescription, your pain medicine, and make sure everything's okay, and they're with you. Medical tourism facilitators can be anywhere in the world, and they won't necessarily travel with you, but they will still be your advocate. They are making sure everything's okay. They're calling
Mm-hmm.
you, they're calling the hospital or the facility and doing all those things.
I'm
Okay.
so glad that you specified that because I was thinking concierge at first. So now that you add and you've explained the difference, I think I know it's very helpful for me, and I would imagine it's also helpful for our listeners too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. That is, I'm so happy that I'm finally in and my technology has me stable so I can participate in this conversation because it is
Absolutely.
fascinating. I have worked with people who have been caretakers for people who've had surgeries overseas, and generally it has been cosmetic that they've gone for during the winter time. So that spring and summer, their bodies look completely different than what they
Mm.
did. They're getting their summer bodies ready.
Yeah.
Um, but I love the fact that you mentioned that people don't have to be, and correct me if I heard you wrong, because I was dealing with technology stuff, that people are coming from various backgrounds to participate in this type of work.
Yes. So, and what a lot of educators and a lot of nurses are leaving their field for
Hmm.
obvious reasons. Since COVID, it's just been really intense, and there's a lot of burnout and turnover. And then also the pay for what those individuals are doing. We're finding that a lot of nurses are finding interest in it, but I have found that just general folks who are really good at project management are
Mm-hmm.
moving into that role because they're so meticulous. And I
Hmm.
say that if you are a person that has those skill sets, the hard skills and some of the soft skills, people skills, you're ideal for that. You know, if you're a person that pays attention to detail, follows
Hmm.
up, make sure that you are planning every piece, you would be really good at it. You know,
Hmm.
and as I mentioned, it doesn't require a degree. It's just you would go through X number of hours to become certified, and you can do it individually or
Wow.
independently, or you can join a group, almost like travel agents have their own travel agent group. So there are a lot of options out there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
Wow.
thought of. Is I was like, this sounds like a travel agent because we know so many travel agents, right? And it is that meticulous detail and
Yeah.
being accommodating and being the advocate for that person and that extra sense of security during this process.
Hmm.
And as you mentioned before, going to pick up whether it's medications, changing bandages, whether it's providing meals and
Hmm.
all of those types of things. And I'm just even thinking when traveling overseas, just even a level of comfort knowing that someone else is there with you.
Yes. Yes, and travel agents actually probably are the ones who make up most who have transitioned into that role,
Interesting.
because of the pandemic. A number of travel agents, obviously, when things were on hold, we didn't know
Yep.
what was going on,
Yep.
lost a lot of business.
Yes, they
But
did.
people are finding that as healthcare costs are increasing, not just
Mm-hmm.
in the U.S. but everywhere, what they're finding is they sort of pivot into the role of medical tourism facilitator. They already had credentials from travel agents, and
Yeah.
they decided to go ahead and say, hey, let me find out a little bit more about this niche. And
Mm-hmm.
they've studied a little more, and they transition, and those have been really great. They make really great medical tourism facilitators.
Wow. You know, as you're saying it, I'm sitting up here thinking when my parents became ill, when both of them had different situations, one of the travel agents that we used to know would talk about the services that were available, let's say like on cruises and things like that. And
Yeah.
it was, you don't have to, your parents don't have to stop traveling because of the medical issues that they have. And they
Mhm.
started explaining the different opportunities that are there that I never knew existed. And they're saying all you have to do is ask. So, like if someone's dealing with whether it's diabetes or if they're dealing with high blood pressure and just
Mhm.
different chronic diseases and so forth, that assistance is available. And so now I'm thinking with someone who is into medical tourism that's another opportunity or what do I want to say? Another
Source of
person.
income.
So, well, I wasn't thinking source of income, but it definitely is another source of income. And I'm
Mm.
thinking about the travel agents that we know who during COVID we were very worried about because it was like, what are they going to do? But I'm also just thinking another avenue and another advocate for people so that they can continue to live their full life.
And that's what's important. So what I've heard is a lot of people don't travel for that very reason. They're
Hmm.
concerned about healthcare in other countries.
Yep.
Um, I so that's a different piece altogether. So for me, I'll give you an example. So 2 years ago, my husband and I decided to go to St. Lucia for a month with the kids. We were like, we're
Hmm.
going to do this. We haven't done anything since COVID. We're going to take a big chunk of time, not just a week. So I looked at my insurance plan, which I work for a US based company, although they're global. And
Hmm.
I called them up and said, I'm going to St. Lucia. I need to know what's covered while I'm on vacation out there if something were to happen to me,
Hmm.
my family. They gave me different providers. They gave me all kinds of information on the hospitals. And I looked them up too to make sure I knew in terms of position how far was I from the nearest hospital,
Hmm.
because I have 3 little ones. So I was just like, we got to be careful. So that for travel is one thing, but I'm finding that we have a lot more digital nomads, those folks who
Hmm.
are working remotely, and they can
Yep.
work from anywhere, and they're
Yep.
spending months at a time in different countries and traveling
Hmm.
about, and they want
Hmm.
to know what is out there for me. So again, that depends on their insurance, but from a medical tourism aspect, to remain healthy, to keep up your wellness, some of the things that I share obviously would be applicable to them. But
Yeah.
I think my target audience specifically, obviously niche down to Black women, but it's
Hmm.
that person that is looking at the healthcare in their own country and realize either I can't afford it and I need
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
or I don't understand and I don't feel heard. And I
Mhm.
need to go where I do
Mhm.
feel heard. And a
Mhm.
lot of times these individuals are like intentional about, I'm going to have this work done in this particular, in somewhere. They may not even know. And then they come to my channel and they'll be educated on it. I've had a number of people, particularly for the dental, come and
Mhm.
say, oh, you gave me enough information. I picked my country based on what you shared.
Wow.
And then for maternal and dental in particular, those two I've heard a lot about, and then
Mhm.
Mm.
cancer treatment as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, the costs are exorbitant, and you can find anywhere from 50 to even 90% less in cost, depending on what you're looking for and where you go.
Yeah.
For these same things that they're doing in the US that will cost them an arm and a leg and 10
Wow.
toes.
Well,
So when you're gathering your information, do you deal with any healthcare facilities?
In the countries that I may be speaking about, No, and I purposely don't do that. So what I do research on everything I provide information on, but if I'm speaking about a particular country, I don't share the name of any facilities. What I do is say there are a number of facilities, or there's one facility in this particular area, and you should all look them up and look up the Joint Commission, which is one of the resources that does accreditation globally. They do it here in the United States, but they do it globally, for any place that cares provided, a clinic, a hospital, dental labs, and all of that. And I say, if they're not a part of the Joint Commission, because this is what I do even for myself, then you may want to rethink that. Now, it doesn't mean they don't have good quality care, but I want that accreditation because it's consistent, it's rigorous. And then it kills two birds with one stone, because what happens is they evaluate the facility and they evaluate the clinicians. So you don't have to go and separately look up clinicians and look up that. I would still look up the clinician, but I'm just saying you have to keep those credentials current to be at that facility under that accreditation. So I always tell them, try Joint Commission first. Now, if they're not Joint Commission Internationals accredited, the second option is, are they connected to a large, say, university? A university that may be even in another country like the US or the UK or Canada that's partnered with them, Stanford, Duke, Mayo, those kind. If they are, those names are so well respected that the accreditation is going to be there, or something very close to it. And I would still go somewhere that has that, and maybe not Joint Commission for whatever reason. But I always say Joint Commission International certified, and I would start there. And that's where I kind of say, let me look at my options from those that are accredited by JCI. I think that is really critical, because what's happening, there was a story that someone shared on YouTube where a friend of hers saw someone that did a BBL, Brazilian butt lift in the Dominican Republic, and she decided, I'm going to do it. She contacted the young lady through Instagram. She's like, oh yeah, this is my doctor who did it. The woman made her plans, went over, had it, came back. She was healing, but she felt exhausted, but she didn't think anything of it. She thought, okay, I just had a BBL. Well, she was wrapped and everything. When she went to one of her follow-ups, because she was going to a follow-up in the US, she came back home, and she's a mother of, I think, 3. She had very low kidney function, and they didn't know why. And then it turns out what she thought she was getting in a BBL, they took one of her kidneys.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so things like that are happening. It's rampant. And what happens is she went back to the Instagram person. The account didn't exist. No one can call. There's no one answering on the other line. I don't even know if it was a physician that actually did what they did to her. And you have no recourse. There's no litigation that's going to happen. And what's happened to her. And now she's there with one kidney because of the cost. She was drawn in by the cost. She was drawn in by the cost. And I always tell people, listen, it will cost you your life. It will cost you your life. So there's no judgment call. Go and do it. If you want to enhance, do whatever, but arm yourself with the information you need to ask the pertinent questions, because it is life or death. And there's some people that also, for me, a pet peeve is people who go and just turn around and come back within 2 days, because they see everyone doing it. I think if you took the time to go somewhere else, get on a plane, make sure you take the time to stay there for that same physician to take out the bandages, to remove the tubes. Don't come back to the US and have people do it here. They've been following you, even if it's virtually, they've been following you to get you to this point. Have the same doctor and same team remove all those things. It's imperative, because there's so many things that could be missed. And I think no matter how much you communicate between the clinician team outside of the US and maybe in the US, it's still not the same as them doing it. And I think it's really important that you just stay a little longer and make accommodations for you to relax and fully recover before you return.
Yeah, Dr. Walls, I just want to say real quick to people who are listening, if they have any questions, please put them in the chat room. because this is I'm listening to you, and I'm just thinking like there must be a lot of questions because so many people are doing this now. Like I said, I saw the news report last week up here about some
Yep.
stuff that happened.
Yep.
So I know there's people who are thinking about it. People might
Mhm.
have questions about it. So put it in the chat room. If you can't put it in the chat room, if you're at work or whatever, get her information so you can go on her website, go on her YouTube
Mhm.
channel, and see what's going on. Because, like you said, it could cost you your life
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
have no recourse when you leave the country. You
Mhm.
go, different laws, different places. It might look real good. I'm a photographer, so I know you can make things look real good. So you like, yeah, that looks good, and then you get over like, wait a second,
Mhm.
how many walls you have here? 3 walls. So please, if you have questions, put in the chat room. If you can't, Dr. Walls, just say for those who are working and they probably listen to us on the radio or something, they can't
Mhm.
write. You might want to just tag us or whatever. Try to get the information somehow. We're
Yeah.
we're very resourceful. Find a way to reach out to her YouTube channel because it was great. That's how I found her. It came across my social media. I was like,
That's
didn't
good.
didn't know she was married to a Lucian. That's a plus. Didn't know she had Jamaican
That's,
parents. That's a plus.
that's a plus.
So I was just like, hey, this looks because what caught me was medical tourism. I was like,
Yes.
what medical tourism? And
Yes.
that's why I looked into you. And like now this is a plus plus. So now I thank
Mhm.
you for what you're doing because the
My pleasure.
information you're putting here is very important.
Yes.
Very important
Mhm.
because so many people are doing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And again, it's not about any judgments or trying to scare anyone. If anything,
Mhm.
it's about making sure that you just are your own best advocate,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
also I really promote, even if it's not for well, for a procedure, I really think that people should also be going with someone. And
Yes.
by that I mean someone who will speak up for you if
Yes.
you're unable to speak.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
it I think some people have misinterpreted take someone with you. I've heard stories of a woman who went with her 2 daughters for cosmetic surgery, and
Mhm.
there was some, I don't know what catastrophe happened, but she was in a coma for a
Mm.
while. And the
Wow.
children are underage. They did not know
Mm.
their mom's cell phone password to open it to
Oh
call
goodness.
whomever in the US. And
Mhm.
they're there, and they were supposed to be there for X amount of time. So now their
Yes.
mom's in this. They can't afford to pay for the hotel beyond those
Oh
days.
mercy.
And they're minors. They're
Mm.
minors. So these types of
You
situations happen. And so I
Mm.
say, you carry someone who is going to speak for you as
Yes.
if you couldn't speak for yourself. That's not
Mhm.
afraid to speak up. That's not timid. Because
Mhm.
if you do need them, you're going to want that person, that type of
Mhm.
person.
Yeah, on the soft side of what you just said, if you don't have someone, I could rent you Ruby. Ruby will talk up for you.
Or Chopper.
Good, good.
Huh?
Or Chopper.
No, I'm laughing. I made a little joke about, it, but really, find someone who will talk.
That's right.
Don't find someone who be like in the corner.
Passive.
No,
Yeah.
get someone like will put their foot down.
Mhm.
Yes.
If they had to take that wig off, like
Mhm.
no, find you and all of us have someone like that. And that's
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
person who you need to be your advocate because if you're going through surgery, you can't talk. You're in
Right.
anesthesia, whatever, you
That's
can't
right.
talk. So you're
Right.
you're
You
at the
can't fend
mercy
for
of the
yourself.
people. So have someone who got your back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. Because then all they'll do is sit there and whatever they're told, they'll be like, okay, thank you. And that's
Hmm.
Yeah.
it. They won't ask any questions on your
Yeah.
behalf.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
should we expect this? What are you going to do about
Yeah.
that? They say this is happening. What's going on? All of
Mhm.
those things. You do need somebody like that with you.
And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you're saying it because just from working with people, we have to think about how we respond in stressful situations, right? So
Yes.
we're in an unfamiliar land, potentially
Mhm.
listening to someone who may not be an English speaker with the same accent
Right.
that we're used to hearing. So there's going to be, and we're excited and nervous about the
Mhm.
procedures that are happening, so we're not taking everything in, right? We're only retaining a little bit of information. We may not know to ask certain questions. And so it behooves us to have an additional set of eyes and ears on
Mhm.
a situation to ask clarifying questions, to not be afraid to ask somebody to repeat themselves 12 times,
Right.
right? If it takes that for you to understand and feel comfortable. Because as you're saying, not only is it impacting your potentially life or death, but your quality of life.
Yeah.
So, right, in the situation that you're talking about with the lady where they took her kidney, right, this is her quality of life. Yes, she's still alive, but this is her quality of life. What if one of her
Mhm.
children need that at some point, right? Needed one.
Exactly.
So you have all of these reasons why it's important to take someone with you to advocate on your behalf. And then we're talking about different procedures. So even as you were talking about the maternity piece, I have a cousin that's a doula, and we
Hmm.
regularly talk about. I hope she's listening. If not, I know she'll listen to the replay. But we often talk about being in that room and having someone who can advocate for the woman who is giving birth.
Right.
Because so many procedures are performed either one unknowingly to the woman,
Hmm.
or at that point in time the husband or the partner, they're not sure, it's a real moment for
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
when you're giving birth. And so you need someone who is able to stand the ground and perform certain duties while all of these procedures are happening, pre-care, during the procedure, as well as post-care.
Yeah,
It's funny you say that. Oh, sorry.
no, go
I
ahead.
just
No,
want to say the doula. I had to comment on the doula thing because that is such a phenomenon amongst Black women more and more these days
Yes,
because of the situation in the US with the poor maternal health.
yes.
But what happens is, unfortunately, doulas are not covered under the insurance in the United
Hmm.
States yet because they don't deem them as professionals
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
this area. They must be a medical doctor who is skilled in Western medicine
Yes,
versus in natural, more natural or holistic methods. Yet
yes.
outside the US, that's a huge thing. There's
yeah,
Hmm.
International Doula Association. The doulas and midwives are actually running the wards in
Wow.
many
yeah, they
countries,
are.
and the physicians only come in the morning or in the evening,
Yep.
and they give report and tell them this is what's happening with my
Yeah.
patients. And
Yeah.
the physicians
Fascinating.
are there and they kind of just write the script and do a little bit
Wow.
more. But doulas and midwives are running the show outside of the United States, which is
Mm,
why maternal tourism is an even more attractive situation
option.
for a
Hmm.
number of.
Yeah, I know my mom had a doula for me because I and she didn't tell me, but I figured it out. I was like, wait, okay, we were born this time, this place. Okay. That's okay. Things your parents don't tell you, or you start figuring it out yourself.
Hmm. Hmm.
No, I said that jokingly, but the serious part of the whole thing is that, you know, being who I am, we have in this country sometimes a lot of, not all of us, we're getting ready to go out to the club or hang out with our friends. We take so much detail in what we put on, how we put it on. The shoes have to match the purse, the dress, the this, the that. And then when we come to our own personal health, we just like, "Woo," you know, I'm
Yeah.
like, if you take that much time to put your outfit together, take that much
Hmm.
time to to your health.
Yeah.
Check things out. Take the time
Hmm.
and check it out. And you go to the club with your girlfriend, and you guys want to make sure this is that and that's all this. Right. If you're going overseas, take a girlfriend or someone with you
Hmm.
who's going to do the same thing for you. Like when you go to the club,
Hmm.
you go to the bathrooms together, you watch your
Hmm.
drinks, all the
Hmm.
stuff you do when you go to the club.
Yeah.
That mentality of protecting yourself in the
Yeah.
club, to have that mentality when it comes to if you
Yeah.
decide to go overseas, break it down and be on point because we want you to come back and be healthy and live a
Yeah.
Yeah.
happy life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So people who are interested in this field, where do they need to go? How do they, um, we're also your contact information in the write up on my Ask Dr. Walls 525 YouTube page. There are all the links for Dr. Natasha. So please be sure to come over to the page, look at the write up, her Instagram, her website, her YouTube, her TikTok, all links are there. But if people want to get involved in this and want to be certified, what do they need to do?
So I always tell people start with everyone has a PhD in Google. So
Yes.
you just put medical tourism facilitator, and honestly, a lot of programs come up.
Mhm.
I don't believe that there's one that's not as good as the other. For me, it's about finding out how long it takes and what you receive at the end, which hopefully is a certification after
Mhm.
doing X number of hours. And they have courses that are it's very similar to how someone would go and become a travel agent or a
Mhm.
realtor. And
Mhm.
essentially they can pick any program, and then at that point when they're ending it, usually whoever's providing the program, they either are part of a larger group and you can
Mhm.
join them, or
Mhm.
you can go independent. And it's a very simple process. Honestly, it's just about jumping in and finding out where your niche may be, because
Gotcha.
there's so many different types of treatments and surgeries. What I find is that they recommend that you specialize. So if you're going to
Mhm.
specialize in cosmetic surgery, okay, you may have BBLs, lipo, this and that, but you specialize in the cosmetic surgery area. You don't just specialize in a number of different things, because it is kind of hard to keep up with all of those things. Who's the best of the best in cancer, in IVF, in this and that. I'm not saying you cannot, because
Mhm.
certainly if you're a part of a group, you may have team members that are. So individually, you can determine and share your client base within your group. But they say that you could specialize in a type, or you can specialize in a region. And some
Mhm.
people pick regions. And I found that a lot of medical tourism facilitators, you'll find that there are a lot of foreign ones who are in country, and they do it because in their own country, either medical tourism is a booming industry, or
Mhm.
people are leaving their particular country, so they're facilitating that to go wherever and cross borders for that
Mhm.
for that, because we found Turkey is a huge spot for medical tourism.
Mhm.
There's a lot of medical tourism facilitators there, for dental,
Wow.
for hair transplants, for all those things. And then there's some that are in Africa, because some are crossing borders from Africa, because maybe some of the facilities in particular countries may not be up to par for a particular procedure, and they'll
Mhm.
facilitate maybe going to the Middle East, or even to some other area. So you can specialize in those things, but you start by Googling and determining which program would be right for you, and
Mhm.
finding out what the requirements are, and then, of course, payment.
I had to tell you, I am receiving text messages from nurses, people who've been traveling nurses, and so forth, saying, and dental hygiene, saying, I didn't know this was a thing, but
Oh
I am
yeah.
looking it up right now.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get a well-known medical tourism facilitator. Well, actually, he owns a company where he trains medical tourism
Mhm.
facilitators. He was extremely busy at the time, but I told him I'll reach back out to him like in another 3 to 6 months. And he
Okay.
has YouTube videos on all the time. If you go on YouTube and just do medical tourism facilitator, you're going to see medical tourism. I forget his name right now.
Okay.
It'll come to me, but I don't know him personally,
I
so I
got
tell
you.
people, hey, I don't know him, but he gives a lot of great 3 and 4 minute YouTube videos on what
Mhm.
it entails, who has
Mhm.
the best skills, what type of skills are needed, and a little bit of just some advice to those who are interested, and those who
Mhm.
are also in it, in turn, because they
Okay.
cover insurance, if they have
mm,
to evacuate you from the country. Suppose
Yeah.
there's even some political unrest,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
some hurricane or natural
Yeah.
disaster.
that's
All
it.
those things,
Mhm.
medical tourism facilitators will handle that for you as you get ready
Wow.
to go, or while you're there.
Well,
I'm
you
not,
done blew it
no,
wide open
no,
for
doc-
people tonight. But
no, Dr. Natasha, thank you. No, you got me thinking, because as the world gets smaller and smaller, all these things are needed, because the
Yes,
information we have, or the information we don't have, could be very dangerous.
Mhm.
And
yes,
so to have people who are comfortable, who are professionals in this field, I think is crucial, because um, last year we heard that in the U.S. there was such a high demand for passports. They had the U.S. government had to end up
I remember that.
hiring more people, because they had a
Yes,
backlog, and high something myself. How many of those people was trying to get passports to go out and do something medical?
Mhm.
And so we could see that people, even though it wasn't, there are people who are more people are traveling. More people
Yeah.
are traveling. More people are getting passports to do what they need to do. So I think this is something that's very crucial to know the information because if you go to a country and you get hurt, you need a
Yeah.
medical. You need a medical. You might be on the beach and get hurt. You might, something silly could happen to you and you get hurt. What do you do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Mhm.
and you don't want to try to figure it out when that happens. You want to try to have some paperwork before it happens so you know what to do. And I think that should be if you make a list of things you do before while you're traveling. I think now the way the world is, I think that should be on your list.
Yeah.
I'm going to X country. What is the medical situation over there if I get
Mhm.
hurt?
Absolutely.
I think that's
Mhm.
Absolutely.
something you have me thinking now because I'm like, I like traveling. I haven't traveled a lot,
Yeah.
but I think that's something that everyone should have if you go on a cruise. What
Mhm.
what
Exactly.
does that what does that cruise ship have? What kind of facilities do they have in that cruise ship? Do they
Mhm.
have competent people who could say, because you're on a cruise in the middle of the ocean, they ain't gonna be able. Hey, you're
You
it.
know,
That's it.
I used to actually work with a doctor in the ER who moonlighted as a cruise ship ER doctor.
Oh, cool.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
it's so fascinating. But she used to tell me all kinds of stories, but she was amazing and loved it. And so on a cruise, you'll find they have really great physicians that are available to you
Mhm.
24/7. That's what they're there for.
Mhm.
If it's extremely serious, yes, you will have to be evacuated probably by helicopter if you're out in the middle versus close to land.
Mhm.
But no matter where you're docking, you should look at it because if you're going to get off and spend the day exploring,
Mhm.
just know what's available to you,
Mhm.
especially if you have elderly, young, really young,
Yeah.
or anyone with any known illnesses. And it could be
Mhm.
autoimmune or chronic illnesses, because I mean, you really need to make sure you have what you need in times of trouble. Just
Mhm.
things can happen. You can be at the beach, jump into the water, and something happens. It
Jellyfish.
just happens.
Mhm. No, no, thank you. That's what thank you for saying that because as we travel and we do more things, I think this is very important. I guess, and as we get older,
All of
as
us
Yes.
we
are
get,
getting there.
yeah,
Yes.
you
Speak for
start thinking about
yourself.
that stuff because you hurt yourself mostly like and like these big cruise ships they have all these things you could do on there. You could do all these different things activities on these cruise ships. So God forbid something happened to you, you gotta make sure like you're covered.
Yeah,
And I'm not trying to put no cloud over anyone's else, but reality is reality. You just never
absolutely.
you never know. So you just
Right.
do your homework. Do your homework.
Absolutely.
Well, Ruby, do you have any final thoughts or questions? We're at the 8 o'clock hour.
Well, I mean, I would say because I took my granddaughter and she's autistic. Ask questions because they had a lot of information and things that I would be able to do with her, and food allergies, and
Mm,
Mhm.
because she's kind of active and doesn't speak, I asked for a specific table in the back where if she wants to stand up and do things, she wasn't bothering anyone or
Mhm.
anything like that. So I say definitely ask questions.
yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's a really good point. And the fact that
Mhm.
you brought up that you said your granddaughter is autistic.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what with autistic children or individuals, a lot of times what I tell people is some of the stigma you see here, you don't experience that, at least when it's with children when you travel. That you know how I don't know if you're in a public place and children are sort of just being children, loud and this and
Mhm.
that, but everyone's looking at you. It's like, goodness, can't they get control of it? That's not happening a lot in other countries. They let children be children,
Mhm.
so no
Mhm.
matter what spectrum, autism, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
it happens. So you don't find that. But certainly the questions when it comes to which clinicians can handle those types of cases, because they see it as well, but you want to make sure you know who sort of specializes in it. So if you need to have some form of help in an emergency situation, they kind
Mhm.
of know what to look for.
Mhm. So
Oh,
important.
this is good. This was a great show.
I know
A
we could
lot.
go we could go on and on,
I know,
Dr.
Thank you.
me too.
Natasha. I think we're gonna have you come back. We would
I
love for
would
you to
love
come back.
to.
Oh,
Oh, you got my
fantastic.
number. You better call me, girl. We got
Let's do
unfinished
something in
business.
St. Lucia.
Yeah, we got
Yes.
unfinished business. Tell
And
your husband I gotta talk to him.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I
Thank
will.
you so, so
This was
much. Like I
amazing.
said, I'm receiving text messages behind the scene of people saying, thank you. I didn't know. They're going to watch
Oh,
the replay. They're going to check out Gilliam Elliott as
oh, good.
well. So there is just so many opportunities for people. And in this changing world that we're in, I think it's important that people know what their options are. There's so many, as Edmund was saying earlier, there's so many job titles and descriptions that are new, right? These aren't things that we grew with. It's no longer just being the doctor, the lawyer, the accountant, the teacher, the
Yeah.
nurse, the secretary, right? There's so much more now. And so we
Absolutely.
thank you for
Thank you.
bringing this to our attention and to our
Yeah,
listening audience,
yeah.
as well as
Hmm.
to the
You.
global audience that you've been impacting.
Yeah, we got.
My
eh,
pleasure.
I need to talk to you again, Dr. Natasha, because we need to do something.
Absolutely.
We got you got my number, right? I think you got my information. We
I
connected on
in the
social
email.
media.
Yes, I
And so
believe so.
let's talk a little bit because what you're doing is very important, mostly for our
Mhm.
community. And I'm not knocking any other community. I can only deal with what
No.
I got to deal with. And in our community, we need more information because we're traveling more now, and we need
Right.
Mhm.
we need to make sure we got the information while as we travel.
I'm
So
glad
Mhm.
you
let's
said
talk
that
later.
because I got a lot of pushback from specific. I'm intentional that it's for Black women. I
Mhm.
am into, and I have no qualms about saying that. I'm a Black woman. My mother's a Black woman. My sister's a Black woman. My two
You
daughters
sound
are
like
Black
me.
women. I
Are
have
you
Mhm.
no
Lucian?
And the reason I do, and I tell people, because I have friends, obviously different shades, and they say, "Well, why does it have to be medical tourism for Black women? Other people do medical tourism too." Great, support my channel, be
Mhm.
an ally, and a
Mhm.
lot of the things that the gems that I'm dropping are for a number of people. But I get specific about Black women because, again, the numbers of the illnesses, chronic illnesses, and other issues for Black
Mhm.
women are sky high, and no one seems to be addressing them. And I
Mhm.
think that's intentional in the United
Mhm.
States.
Yeah,
I think
Mhm.
it's
yeah.
intentional
Mhm.
and deplorable. So I'm going to do that because no one will take care of a Black woman like another
Mhm.
Black woman will.
Yeah,
So I'm here for
Yeah.
that, and I'm not going to change my niche. I will
yeah.
continue to
No, don't.
serve
Please don't.
Black women.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
No,
that's why I
you
say that.
amen. Because I tell people all the time, and nothing against anybody, I'm a Pan-Africanist.
Thank
I'm
Mhm.
you.
a Pan-African, and anyone know what a Pan-Africanist is about. You know where I'm coming from. If you don't
Yeah.
like what I'm talking about, then just change my
Mhm.
channel. That's
I'm
all.
not for you. It's okay.
That's all. You know,
Mhm.
that's
Just
all
change
it
the
is.
channel. Keep
Yep,
And
going.
that's all
and the
good.
thing about it is, two things came to mind. There was an author, and I wish I remembered who it was years ago, that said, "It's not that there's more hate than love in the world. It's just that hate's doing a better job." And
Oof. Wow.
okay,
Powerful.
and then the other person had said, "It doesn't take 100% to tip the scale. It only takes 51%. So do
Mm,
your part." And
right.
Hmm.
so we thank you for doing your
Yep.
part. Someone
Thank you.
has to
Thank you.
advocate for our group of people
Yeah.
because they go overlooked. The studies aren't there for various reasons, right? The
Yeah.
information isn't there, either one, because people aren't doing it or because people aren't participating in the
Mistrust.
studies,
And
right?
we have
Due
a
to the
reason
mistrust,
to.
right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
history there. So all of that is real.
Hmm.
So when you have someone who is saying, look, let me help be this liaison, let me help be this bridge and share this information. And to your point, right? I know a lot of nurses who are burnt out and people who are burnt out from the pandemic and so forth and are looking for opportunities and new
Right.
opportunities. And this meets that piece. Because when Edmund first brought your name to my attention, he was like, check out her page. I was thinking a traveling nurse. And I said, oh, I know
Mm,
people who are interested. Let me send and let them know. And then I started reading more. And then I listened to a couple of your videos. And then I was like tapping my cousin, like, yo, you need to listen to this
Hmm.
over here. And then, and then, like I said, my mother was like, well, what's it going to be about? And I was like, we're going to find out when we have this interview. So I
Yeah.
know, like I said, the first half, unfortunately, the internet was kicking me off and everything. So I missed a lot. So I'm looking forward to the replay so that I can have more questions to invite you back on
oh,
to
I would
talk
love
some
to.
more.
I would love
Yeah,
to.
yeah. So please hit me up, Doc, because Dr. Nash, we need to talk because there's some things I have, some ideas I have,
Okay.
and I definitely want to talk to you about it because I think this is past due. Spiritually, I just know God put you on my social media because I go through social media a lot looking for information to help our community locally, nationally, internationally. And
Right.
you came up across my stuff and it caught my eyes. And I said, spiritually, the way you had yourself medical tourism, spiritually, it caught my eye.
Mhm.
And so that's why you're here. So if you're here, I know there's something else I have to do with you spiritually. So let's
I
talk.
hear
Let's
you.
definitely touch base.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the invite, and it was a pleasure being on. And I would love to come back for another segment. Thank you so much. This is a
Love, you
really
are coming
important.
back. I love
Okay,
coming back.
I'm coming
Hey,
back.
no, love is you're coming back.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Oh, Awa.
Oh my
All
goodness.
right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. To our guests who have joined us, Reggae Locks even laughed at some of the stuff that was going on here.
That's my stylist. Look at you. She set me up. Love
Look.
you, big up.
Big up, blah, 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 blah.
Yes, and I've been loving your. I had locks for 15 years. So,
Wow.
yes, in 2015, they had to leave, unfortunately. But yeah, they were all the way down my back. I loved them. I
I
loved them.
love them.
So
I
when
love
I
them.
saw your hair, I was like, yes, yes,
No
I know.
comment.
He loved them too. That will be his only
You
comment.
missed them.
Yes, yes. So, all right, y'all. Until we meet again, as
Yes.
always, God bless. If you have not joined Ask Dr. Walls 525, please be sure to do so. We have the greatest blueprint coming up on Tuesday, where we'll be looking at love and dating and crushes and what are all of those feelings that we feel and why we feel those feelings. So we'll be doing that. And then next Wednesday, I have Family and Finance with Brian Brogan, and we'll be talking about your money personality. So be sure to subscribe, and you'll find out more about all of these great shows that we have on Ask Dr. Walls 525. Until we meet again, as always, God bless and continue to live your greatest life. See you soon.
Okay, good night, Doc.
Right.
Bye.
Right.
Bye, Ruby.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Wall, see you
Nice.
later.